Okay, so parents of Gen Alpha, quick question. Have you ever, tried to have an actual conversation with your kid, about screen time, maybe chores, just anything really? And it's like their brain is on super speed,
Oh, absolutely. It's like they're wired differently.
Exactly. And it's more than just tech skills, right? It affects how they talk, how they learn, even how they connect with people. So, where do we even begin with this as parents? Well, we did a deep dive into this book, 15 Rules of Parenting.
By Krishna Kumar.
Right, Krishna Kumar. And let me tell you, he's got some really interesting ideas, especially for us raising kids in, well, this whole tech crazy world.
The thing about Kumar is he's not just telling you what to do. He digs into the why, like why these rules matter, especially because Gen Alpha's digital, savviness.
Hmm.
It changes things. They need a whole new playbook.
I'm all about that practical advice. So, spill the tea. What were some of the big aha moments for you?
Well, he starts with communication, which makes sense, but with this Gen Alpha spin. Like, rule #1 is all about intense listening.
Okay.
And I don't just mean waiting till they're done so you can talk. It's about truly tuning into even the stuff they're not saying.
That's so real. It's like they speak emoji and GIF now. Getting them to slow down, actually use their words, that feels like a superpower.
Exactly. And that leads right into rule #2, which honestly blew my mind a little whispering instead of shouting.
Wait, what? That seems counterintuitive.
Right. But think about it. Gen Alpha, they're bombarded with noise constantly, like loud noises, screens flashing, everything's vying for their attention. Whispering, it cuts through all that. It forces them to actually tune in.
Okay, that's wild. I'm always the one telling my kids to be quiet, but maybe if I flip the script.
Exactly. Kumar says it's about sparking their curiosity, making them want to lean in instead of, just shutting down.
Creating that space to actually connect, which is huge, especially now, right? They're trying to figure out who they are with all this online pressure.
And that's where his whole thing about letting them be themselves really hit home for me. He's got this line, rule #3, he says, do not try to make them pursue interests that you missed in life.
Ooh, that one stings a bit. I mean, who hasn't pictured their kid rocking that piano recital that they, totally bombed as a child?
Right. But Kumar's saying our kids, they're not here to live out our dreams for us. They've got their own passions to discover, even if those passions seem, I don't know, a little different, a little niche.
Which is tough these days, right? Social media is constantly shoving these picture perfect lives, picture perfect interest.
Exactly. And that's a big reason why he's so adamant about no comparisons, which is rule #7. He even says comparison is the death of happiness.
And not just happiness, right? It's about self-discovery. How can they figure out who they are if they're too busy measuring themselves against everyone else's highlight reel?
It's a recipe for insecurity, especially for kids who are, still figuring things out. And that's where understanding this whole digital world is so important. Kumar doesn't shy away from the tough stuff about the internet.
Yeah, he talks about it being a reality distortion field, which I love, by the way.
Right.
Because it's true. It's like this curated world.
Right.
It's tough for anyone to resist that, especially kids who are still learning to tell what's real and what's not.
And it's not about being anti-tech. Kumar gets that. There's tons of learning potential there. It's about balance. And he's got some surprisingly simple but effective ideas. One thing that really got me thinking was how he sees screen time. He's not about rigid limits,
Right.
He actually wants parents to get involved in their kids' digital world.
Okay.
He calls them, get this, wonderlands of dopamine.
Which, let's be real, that's pretty accurate. My kids get lost in those dopamine loops all the time.
Right. But instead of just shutting it down, he's all about bridging that gap, having these friendly conversations about their favorite YouTubers, the games they're playing.
I like that. So it's about tapping into that curiosity, not crushing it.
Exactly. And that curiosity can be used for good. When it comes to, actual life skills.
Oh, right. Rule #10. Making your kids the money managers. That one threw me for a loop. Giving them an actual budget, even if it's just for groceries, letting them make decisions.
Hands-on experience right there.
It's like financial literacy boot camp.
Exactly. And it plays into this bigger idea Kumar's getting at, which is treat kids like equals.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to knowledge, current events, like he talks about in rule #13.
So instead of trying to shield them from all the, complicated stuff in the world, we should be having those conversations.
Yes. Even if it means explaining things that are tough.
Or admitting we don't know everything.
Exactly. I mean, Gen Alpha,
Yeah.
they have access to so much information, but they need help actually making sense of it all.
That's so true.
And by including them in those conversations, we're showing them, hey, what you think matters. Your perspective is important.
It's about giving them the tools to, like, think for themselves,
Yes.
form their own opinions, even if we don't agree with them, which, let's be honest, that's hard.
Oh, absolutely. Kumar gets that. Rule #11, this one resonated with me.
Yeah.
When they hold starkly different opinions about things, be curious, not critical.
Easier said than done.
Right. But so important.
Because it's so easy to be the know-it-all, but what if we came at it like, hey, help me understand, why do you feel this way?
Exactly. Creating that safe space for them to talk, even if they're still figuring things out. And that ties into that whole intergenerational commitment thing Kumar talks about.
Okay, we keep saying that, intergenerational commitment. What does that actually look like for us, like day to day, dealing with these Gen Alpha kids?
It means we're not just raising kids, right? We're shaping the adults they're going to be, the world they're going to be in charge of someday. It's a lot, but it's not about being perfect.
Right.
Kumar actually says this in Rule #14, how like our own childhoods, they can really affect how we parent.
Oh, for sure. Our baggage becomes their baggage.
Right. And he says being aware of those patterns, that's the first step to breaking them.
So we don't pass it on.
Exactly. He even says, and this is kind of intense, but bad parenting is more dangerous than zero parenting.
Wow.
Which sounds harsh, but it shows you how much our actions really matter.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that, like, we're all learning as we go, especially with a generation that's so different from ours.
Absolutely. And that's why his last rule, Rule #15, is huge. Enjoy parenting. It's a privilege, not a duty.
Okay, I love that.
It's about finding the joy, even with all the, the craziness.
Because ultimately, we just want them to be happy, right? Like well-rounded people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not our job to make them into mini versions of us.
Or fit into some, like, box.
Right. It's about giving them what they need to find their own way,
Yeah.
Embrace all the things that make them them.
And maybe they'll even teach us a thing or two along the way, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
They are the digital natives, after all. So as you're going through it all, the ups, the downs, the whole Gen Alpha roller coaster,
Yeah.
remember, you're not alone. Kumar's rules are a great place to start, but you've got to, make them your own. Be present, be curious, and most importantly, be kind to yourself. Okay, you've got this?
So well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive. But this conversation, it's not over.
Oh, definitely not.
We want to hear from you. Kumar talks about this idea of bad parenting being worse than zero parenting. What do you think about that? Does that resonate? Head over to our social media. Let's talk about it. We really want to know what you think. So we've covered a lot. But, what are the big takeaways here for our listeners? What should they be thinking about?
Honestly, it keeps coming back to that intergenerational commitment thing. We're not just, raising kids. We're shaping the adults they'll become and the world they're going to inherit, which is kind of a big deal when you think about it.
No pressure. Right.
Right. But Kumar's not saying we have to be perfect. He actually talks about this in Rule #14, how, the way we were raised, it can really affect how we parent, even subconsciously.
Oh, totally. It's like all our baggage gets passed down,
Exactly. And being aware of those patterns, that's how we start to break them. He even goes so far as to say, bad parenting is more dangerous than zero parenting.
Whoa. Okay.
It sounds intense,
Yeah.
but it makes you realize how much our actions actually matter.
Yeah, for sure. We're all just figuring it out as we go, right?
Yeah, they're right.
Especially with Gen Alpha, because they're just different.
Totally. Which is why his last rule, Rule #15, is so important, Enjoy parenting. It's a privilege, not a duty.
Okay, yes. I love that.
It's about finding those moments of joy, even amidst, all the chaos,
Because, at the end of the day, we just want our kids to be good people, right?
Yeah.
Happy, well-rounded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not our job to turn them into, mini-me's.
Or to fit into some perfect little mold.
Right. It's about giving them the tools to do their own thing, Be themselves, even if it's a little messy sometimes.
And who knows? Maybe they'll teach us a thing or two along the way. They are the digital natives, after all.
Exactly. They've got a lot to offer. So yeah, as you're navigating it all, the highs, the lows.
There's a whole Gen Alpha roller coaster ride.
All of it. Remember, you're not alone, okay? Kumar's rules are a great start, but you got to find what works for you. Be there for them. Be curious about their world.
And be kind to yourself.
Yes. You've got this.
Amazing advice. And on that note, we've come to the end of our deep dive, but this conversation, it's far from over. We want to hear what you think. Kumar talks about this whole bad parenting being worse than zero parenting thing. What are your thoughts on that? Does it resonate? Hit us up on social media. Let's talk about it. We want to know what you think.